It's a Fountain Dew. Alright. I tied the back of one and I was so off the rails that we're just going to start again, and I'm going to attempt to be a little more disciplined. I was talking about the loaf and air resistance and casting, and I do want to talk about that though. I'm going to go off the rails again. It's fine. It's part of life. So I tend to be more on the side of flash versus feathers. We're going to do both. I don't do the super big feather tail, so I'll probably just end up using, we'll see where this gets me. And for whatever reason, even though I'm not now, because I'm not going super heavy on the bird, I also make it a little shorter. So basically a shank. Now the water, I have a little cup. The water, wetting your marabou down. There are many benefits. When you're tying in wet marabou, when you're tying in dry marabou, you can kind of get stuff bunched up. But when you wet it down, you can get a really firm grip. Yeah, you can get a really firm grip because you don't have everything straight down onto the shank. I feel like there's already a tangent or two that I want to talk about, but we're just going to go straight into why this fly is one that I always have in my box and why it is in the top, we'll say 5, the starting rotation for clients. I think it comes down to ignoring ability to see. So we'll just say it's blown out. No, we won't. I'm just going to talk about casting and casting relative to the presence of this fly in the water to a fish. So not our eyes. Because of the lead eyes, we're going to do ice dub on the back with some wire. It's gold wire, which is like, it has a little bit more memory than copper and silver. So because of the lead eyes, it has momentum. And all the marabou and everything else. Because of the deer hair, and specifically if you tie it sparsely, where the air is moving through and around all of the hair versus over a packed head, there is air resistance when you're casting. And air resistance is what creates the unfolding of a leader versus the having to ball and chain type thing, or having the the fly land and then your line shoot past it. Air resistance is why fly fishing is required for little flies. So when you have a little bit of weight and you also have the right amount of air resistance, and this isn't like, you don't need to get super complicated with this. I encourage you to explore what this thing casts like without a sparse head and what it casts like with a sparse head, and then compare that to a peanut. So that sort of combination of ability to cast and honestly fun, ease of casting relative to its size, it's just right in there in the, if the trout are requiring at the time a big fly, that 4.5 5 inch full profile can just be really easily delivered. And then you can do it again, and then you can do it again, and you can keep doing it, and you can keep doing it into those really dangerous places. You can do it with accuracy all the while. And so something that I don't necessarily I remind people throughout the day that I don't care if you lose flies. I really don't. I enjoy tying flies. Generally, yeah, you're losing the fly that I probably tied that morning, and I'm all fucking charged up for you to be fishing because it's. But when you lose it, whatever. I'll tie another one. Problem is, when you lose flies, generally speaking, it's less of a oopsies and more of a, at a minimum, we need to put some leader on, or at a minimum, we need to change flies. I guess that's the real floor. But lots of times the leader so being able to get it into those bad places and do so in a way that is sneaky, using our fly rods. Getting that leader unfolded under trees. So yes, part of fishing streamers, for sure. Part of fishing streamers for big browns, absolutely, is losing flies. You want to minimize it. And it's really hard. I'll just use, one of my top producing flies for big fish. Well, top producing big flies for big fish is the Crafty Changer. This gold wire is just not soft. And guess what? Crafty Changers, I've spent a lot of time getting them to a place where they can be casted. Casted? That sounds weird. One can cast them with ease, with relative ease, but it's still not super easy. And even when I'm fishing them, I'm kind of T-Rexing, I'm short-arming some of the casts because it's a lot of fly. And you really don't feel like getting that hung up. Now, most of the places that I'm fishing at are it's water that I can get that fly back. It's slower water. It's a presentation that I would qualify as begging on its knees, drooling, please, please put a crafty changer. So kind of slower, more uniform. We can typically get those flies. The Dungeon, really, fast water, slow water, it's an all around great fly. I use it for smallmouth too, and so we'll get now for us because we're important too, and arguably one of the most important parts of streamer fishing is looking at your fly and saying, "Oh, god damn." If you have that reaction, that's going to be... You're going to catch a fish with that fly. It's just... I really don't care what it is. Yeah, maybe like a giant bucktail changer in a small trout stream. You might get that 28. Alright, I'm off the rails again. Back. Done. I already tied one of the backs. So forgive me as I step away and get another Daiichi 2461. I'm back. And of course, peach, shrimp, tan. Little grizzly on top of it, which I'm not doing, but... And if you've been following along at home, I started using my old muskie leaders that were too shorter than the mouth and throat of a muskie. Use my brain a little bit. And then I found out I really like using that stuff. And I'll let you know, I'll keep you posted when I'm fishing for muskie and I don't have any leader left because I used it all in trout flies. But until then, smoke them if you got them. So really the only difference here is between this and Kelly's video is that I didn't shave and it's peach, iced up in the back, UV chenille in the front. I am going to remember to put the eyes on first. I have been bending these things real bad. I don't know if lead got soft or if something changed in what I was doing. I really doubt that something changed in what I was doing. Just because there's no way it's my fault. Definitely makes more sense that it's someone else's fault. So, in order to isolate, man, my brain. Too much time inside today. order to insulate those eyes from the pressure of wire and compressing thread, I don't know why it would be any different. I think just because of supply chain issues in the last couple of years that the lead got softer because it just started happening. And then a dubbing loop of deer hair. I like how I catch up with my thoughts every once in a while. And man, if anyone else is like trying to follow along with this on a step-by-step basis, you should do it with what's happening here, not what's happening here. And really, most of this is for me to talk about guiding and tying and try to give some tips on fishing, things that I have learned, things that one might learn fishing with me or going out and exploring on your own. I mean, learning to tie this in another way outside of watching Kelly's video and listening to, I've probably watched that video 300 times, 400 times. If it were over 300, I would not be surprised at all. For some reason, I was waiting, like, I don't know, years until I was out of my office job and doing this for a couple of years. And I wanted to see, 6-7 years ago when I was just binging, restart, cutting heads off, retying, restart it. It's in the background. I'm tying other flies and that dungeon video is playing because it was just, I was so fixated on trying to get on trying to get the head, on trying to get okay, serviceable, not even good. I should have put that other tail on. With deer hair, that I just kept, I would tie 3, 4, 5 over the course of, 2 or 3 different sessions. And after work, staying up late, and I'm not kidding. There were some nights where I would just, before I went to bed, I would just cut them all off. Because, when the first handful was, this thing's awesome. I tied this cool streamer. It's just doing, yellow and red and all sorts of. They caught fish. But after the first handful, I was like, all right, I clearly do not know how to tie this thing, and I want to know. I want to get good at it. And that's the way to get good at deer hair. Just keep tying with it. Figure out why it works. Figure out what doesn't work about how you are tying with it. What does work about how you are tying with it. I just tied this swim bug. I haven't cut it up yet, but went stack, stack, spin, spin. And it's a bigger, so just keep learning. And there's really no substitute to watching Kelly's stuff and listening to, because he talks about marabou selection and he talks about the deer hair, and you know, it's, man, I learned so much from watching those videos that you can't find anywhere else, because everyone is catering to shit. I've been doing it too, trying to get I need to get 500 subscribers in order to, and then 2 other marks in order to monetize, in order to get any type of money and for YouTube views. And in order to do that, I mean, one of them is Reels, and it's just like, like and subscribe, seriously. Chickaboo from the American Rooster Saddle, dyed peach. You should look at that. I put the one of me catching a big brown. Wait, no, I put the one of me netting my buddy's big brown. It's monster. Yeah, I mean, the video is insane. And it had like 5 views, and the awesome, very large rainbow trout, which had at that point like 1.5 thousand. It was just like, dude, I just missed. So I just shortened it up a little bit and made like the trout coming up through the water the very first thing. So no 1.5 seconds of bullshit up front. It just immediately a giant trout in the water. And all of a sudden, I deleted it, re-uploaded it with that little cut, and it took off. Which is why I feel like I'm trying to build my karma back up by doing one of these that I like. These longer form. It's like a fireside chat. I think that was FDR. God. My daughter's going to kindergarten this year, and it's like, man, I'm losing. It's not like I'm getting dumber, but I'm definitely losing some of that knowledge. But, you know, it's all made up anyway, so we'll do copper UV. Oh yeah. Yeah, FDR didn't even exist. I like to build up below that. I was going to do a direct dub, but I'm doing a loop. And then I'm going to do a couple turns of hackle and a wing. Leave that belly nice and exposed and shiny. Put it in there for a reason. Legs, hair, dubbing loop. doing a complex twist with chenille and ice dub, I feel like just to get the ice dub as a base layer would be overkill. You know, when I'm looking at some of the footage, I say some because I can't rewatch all of this, but when I am looking at some of it, I'll say, man, you should look at the camera more because, and sustain eye contact and tie at the same time because that is the content that we need. Now it looks, if I'm taking this view with this, it kind of looks, I don't know, looks weird. Enough about the giant trout. I'm not sure what else I could use for a reel. Man, I watch some of these things. It's like I'm trying to make this take longer. I went into a rabbit hole this morning. I watched some of these reels just being like, how the fuck is an 11-pound brown trout being netted, half of it in slow motion, not going bonkers, like off the rip? And so, God, there are some, and look, the only reason I'm jealous is because I have an ego that needs to be checked, and I'm entitled and a little insecure. Other than that, all these other fucking jokers, there are definitely some accounts that are just, they're getting millions of views. And I mean, good for this one dude in particular. Local fishing boy. Not, you can look it up. Not a stateside account. There was this. There was one where he rigs up like some squishy, looks like what I would put out for catfish. Throws it out there. The camera zooms in on the tip of the rod, which just has a loop knot attached to like a little hook on the end of a stick. And then like right at the end he goes, you see it going tight, and he goes and picks up the rod, and the rod, you know, the front end sort of falls out. And then it ends. Which I guess is like a genre. Man, I don't know. This video is turning into more of a therapy session for me. But that's okay. I needed it. Chickaboo. And I'm using 140. feel like that pressure's pretty distributed there. $140, flat waxed, Flymaster Plus from Danville. It's my favorite thread. We've been through some hard times together. Been through some good times too. Mostly bad times though. And it just doesn't complain. Shows up. Has that lunch packed. Remembers the hot sauce in case, its coworkers forget it. And just gets it done. You can really tie, and I've tied musky flies that have gone through. The things that happen outside of the catching of muskie, generally speaking, are the real tests of musky flies. At least for the articulation and for that thread being able to hold stuff together when it's just getting buried into bad stuff. And then you set, and it's a tree, it's not a fish, and the tree doesn't move. Ice. That's pretty bizarre. I was on full autopilot there. So once that gets, kind of worked through and brushed out by a brush, this is for anyone who's been following this journey, this is my custom designed dubbing brush. That's tailor-made ergonomic grips there. It's it's for like professional production tying. I'm switching to 100 GSP, which the Semperfly, holy hell, this stuff. I complained enough about the Vivus, and I got some great feedback, and finally I got through all of my Vivus 100 GSP. Oh yeah. Semperfly 100 strand, and Vivus 150 and 200, which I don't have a problem with. Local boy fishing. Dude's getting paid. Good for him, man. There was another one that's just him putting like a little minnow on a hook. I mean, he drags it out. Someone's filming him actually putting a little fishy onto a hook, and then he throws it out there. And that is where the video ends. So tying this collar, I like to get it up there and while it's pinched, or whatever, over the garbage can, cord it up and around once while pinching on the shank. Pull up from underneath, up and around again. Pull up from underneath. And pulling up from underneath pulls this down without wanting to turn it. Then you can mash on it. Make adjustments if you need to. I'm good with that. So this is where I wonder if this is what, if the cording, because the deer hair expands in the dubbing loop. So this time I guess I'm not going to go around the bottom, and we'll see what happens. Spinning this up and then the deer hair gets wet and expands. That's the only reasonable explanation for... Where's my spinner? Right here. It's the only reasonable explanation for all these eyes bending out so bad. Snapping. I mean, I have a graveyard. Like, because I'll crisscross, and maybe that's just doing something. I'm using different deer hair. I want a lighter peach. They're all the same color. Alright, whatever. I'll use the same. That's not true. I'm using this one. I feel like it's really, I'm not a consumer of social media very much, which is a questionable business practice if the goal is to, for example, monetize stuff on YouTube. I should probably know what's going on, but god damn, I looked at that stuff this morning and was just like, whoa. You want to talk about big league? It's a different league for sure. They are getting it done somehow. So I know that probably looked a little funky if you haven't done it before. I assure you, it becomes easy, just like all tying and just like all deer hair in particular. And it is much easier than you would imagine. And once you pull it like that, and it's not going to move. It's all doubled over within that dubbing loop, and treat it like hackle. So I started doing this on musky flies to try to get a bigger, I would use the bases of bucktail to try to, so not going around the bottom here, to try to get a bigger portion of the shank as the head. And it's just like, well shit, I can do it with deer hair. And what it allows you to do is get a uniform head that is also sparse. And if you're looking at each one of these wraps like a sparse spin, or just on top of the eyes a small single stack, it's basically putting little stacks on every side of the hook as you're getting up towards the end. And I'll probably put a little spin here at the end. We'll see how this looks. And since I forgot if I close that off, tiny spin. And spinning versus stacking, I doubt that you're here at this point, at least. Maybe you are, without knowing spinning versus stacking, but it's really just different ways of getting deer hair close to the shank of a hook. Spinning is getting all of this deer hair on, folding it up, and then having that fold go around the hook. Stacking is just doing this. Once it folds up, then you put one of those on the bottom. And then packing is pushing it back. So this is just going to be a little spin to finish off. So I put 2 around there so it can't escape. And then I can really walk through. I would see people tie with deer hair and was just thinking, what on planet Earth are you doing with your reckless thread wraps? Well, I think a lot of the experience with deer hair is figuring out that it does a pretty good job of finding where it needs to be, and you can manipulate it like I'm doing now. So the comfort of putting those thread wraps in between your spins and stacks and all that stuff, and then recognizing that if you're a little off, it really doesn't matter. Now doing the artsy stuff it's a little different, but a little burpee from that Fountain Dew. Easy. Going right on the sides of the eyes with scissors. And then you can take your scissors and go up against the collar there too. Right on the bottom. Sides of the eyes. Other side of the collar. And then I will probably pretty this up a little bit with the razor blade that I very, very quickly grabbed. I like to have that front kind of just a little bit of a mini slope. Nope. Use your straw if you want to. Man. Yeah, I like to clean up these sideburns for no good reason, but actually not gonna. All right, now. Now, I'm not going to do any more. Oh. Just some of them are not fun. Peachy Dungeon. Yeah, I'm going to end up screwing around with this more. Dye some stuff. Tie some flies. Have fun out there. Okay, now I'm done. Now I'm done. Good looking bug.